Good evening, SBC family and friends. Welcome to A Conversation with Friends. I'm Pastor Ivan Pitts, and I'm here with Kareem Cook from Nature Aid. This is going to be a great conversation, a journey of success through failure and challenge, but ultimately, this is a story of faith. I invite you to journey with us on this incredible time with A Conversation with Friends. I have a video that I want to introduce us to that would be a great way for us to segue into this great conversation.
My name is Claude Tellis. My name is Kareem Cook, and we are the owners of Nature Aid. Nature Aid's vision and mission is to reverse prediabetes, and that's a condition that affects 86 million Americans, many of whom are people of color. And we do that by selling weight loss shakes, meal replacements, and gut health products. When we first moved out to California, we decided that we wanted to do something about child obesity as well as the diabetes epidemic. The first thing we did was we launched a healthy vending machine company out here from scratch. We were responsible for replacing the junk food from all the public high schools and middle schools in Los Angeles and actually getting the law changed. We really learned that if we just help people lose about 10% of their weight, they'd have a 60% less chance of getting diabetes. We want to challenge everyone out there to lose 400 million pounds, and we want our product to be front and center in creating that narrative. I see Nature Aid being a dominant force in focusing on weight loss in urban communities. We're the first Black-owned company in this space to actually get distribution in Costco, right? That's sort of the holy grail for CPG companies, and we're going into Whole Foods. And so these are enormous opportunities that a company like ours generally doesn't have access to. We always had a vision and mission around reversing prediabetes. You look at the mortality rates in the African American, Latino communities, it's 3 or 4 times that of the general community. And so COVID has really made our work more and more urgent.
Conversation with Friends is not something new. We've been doing this since the beginning of COVID. We've had conversations about the vaccine, about George Floyd, about social justice and racial reconciliation. We even had a conversation with Chief Barnes, the Chief Sheriff of Orange County, trying to get underneath issues that concern us. Today, there's no exception. As a matter of fact, I'm more excited about today's conversation than any of our conversations. I would like to welcome to our time together Mr. Kareem Cook.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Kareem, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from and how did you get to this place?
So my name is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Cook. Yes. I'm named after a famous basketball player, and I like to joke that if I were born a year earlier, my name would be Lou Alcindor Cook. Grew up in the Bronx, New York, in the southeast Bronx, so literally bordering the South and the East Bronx. And I credit one of the things that saved me was a program called Prep for Prep that I got into early in 5th grade, and it sort of took me off the path I was on, and I ended up getting a scholarship to a private school, which enabled me to go to Duke University and then get my MBA, and it really had a profound effect on my life.
Yeah. You talk about, we've had conversations before, you talk about your upbringing and how you could have gone one way, but this scholarship and education has really changed your life. Talk to me a little bit about the impact of that decision to get the scholarship and to go on to Duke, and what did it save you from?
Man, I'll tell you that, I grew up in a neighborhood where people really didn't expect to live to be 50, live to be 40. I didn't know anybody that grew up with their dad in the house until I went to college. And that's tremendously impactful on a young male's perspective growing up there. And so getting that scholarship to that private school, it just opened my eyes to a whole new different world. The possibilities were open to me. The conversations that these kids were having at the dinner table with their family, with their father and mother coming home and talk about their day, were just conversations that we don't get exposed to. And so I was very intentional as a dad now to make sure that I impart those lessons on my daughter that I was able to learn growing up. And I was lucky, you know. I think that I was smart, but I was also given an opportunity. And with that opportunity, I was prepared, and that sort of led to success. But not everyone is given that opportunity. Very few of us are.
Yeah. Opportunity, that's interesting, because you also have this concept that you talk about providence. Talk to me a little bit about providence and how you understand it, and how has that impacted your life?
Yeah, so I don't know if you ever watched The Matrix.
I have.
So it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And there's this moment in The Matrix where Zion is about to be destroyed. First of all, the Matrix had a whole lot of biblical references. You know, Zion, Nebuchadnezzar, you know, Trinity, all these different.
Right.
And in this moment, Zion was about to be destroyed, where all the humans were, and everyone was pessimistic. And Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne's character, just looked around. He said, you know, all of our lives we fought this war. Tonight I think we can win it. And tonight is no accident. I don't believe in accidents. You know, we are not here by coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. When I see 3 objectives, 3 captains, 3 ships, I don't see coincidence. I see providence. I see purpose. And tonight we're about to learn. I believe that we were meant to be here, and that tonight's going to reveal our destiny and the purpose of our lives. And that was so deep to me. I said, man, that's an amazing, you know, speech, you know, pep, leadership, boosting the troops up, their morale. Mm-hmm. And I said, but what does that word providence mean? I didn't know it at the time. I looked it up, and providence means divine path set before you by God. And that word hit me here so deeply that I printed the word out. I took a picture of my business partner, Claude, and I put a picture in the office, and I put providence, and I put the definition. And it really guides my life. You know, I believe that, you know, there is providence, and I believe that we all have a path. And when we're on that path, things work out. And when you're not on that path, things are more difficult. And your challenge is knowing whether you're on the path or not. You know, and what happens is some of us get knocked off our path, and we start to veer and go in a different direction. And at first, it feels familiar. It feels like you're still on your path. But the further and further away from it you get, you just turn around one day, and you're off your path. And so that's been. It's funny. I saw that movie. I learned that concept, and I realized I've always believed that, because there are certain things as a child that I knew was for me, and I could see in the future these things are for me, even though it made no sense. And when those things happened in my life, it was really just destiny fulfilled for me.
Yeah. So what that is interesting. These paths, you know, we're journeying. We have, as kids, we have dreams, we have visions, we have aspirations, and sometimes those dreams and visions are limited by the environment in which we're in. You talked about being exposed, and it opened your mind. And then these 2 roads. Talk to me. Are there clues? How did you know you were on the right path? How did you know? What were the markers? And one of the things that you shared with me in answering that question, you talked about you have this relationship, or had a relationship with Michael Jackson. Let's talk about, you know, the king of pop.
That's funny. I was actually going to answer that question with that story. This is probably going to be the craziest thing that most people are going to hear today for certain. But I'll say this. There are a few things I knew as a kid. You know, my grandparents and their siblings. You know, I remember being a kid and going to visit and seeing insulin in the refrigerator and seeing the needle pack. And I never saw them stick themselves with insulin, but I knew that's what was happening because they all had diabetes. So that was something that always, that was a memory, probably a traumatic memory for me for my entire life. But there were 2 things I knew was going to happen when I was a kid. At 4 years old, I knew I was going to meet Michael Jackson, and I knew I was going to be on Wheel of Fortune. and so when those things happened to me in my life, you know, I was calm. And I'll just tell you this, I'll be brief about the story, but, you know, we're both in the same fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi. And when I was in college, we were the best group. And the reason we were so good was because we were all city kids that just happened to be at Duke University at the same time. And so we were really good. We had this reputation. And Debbie Allen's brother Hugh Allen was in business school when I was an undergrad, and he'd always tell Debbie Allen about me. So fast forward a couple of years, I graduated, and I was working for a life insurance company, and I wanted to get some business experience, and part of the job was selling life insurance, but also selling mutual funds, annuities, and these kind of things. And I started to feel as though we were manipulating people into buying products that they didn't need. And so I decided that wasn't jiving with my spirit. I'm just going to stop doing it, but I'm going to sell these annuities and mutual funds because people need those, retirement plans. My commission check, which is 100%, went from $800 a week to $400 to $200. I was making $15 a week. After a while, I was eating tuna fish and Eggo waffles and, sugar water, right? And so, but I was determined to make something of this. One day I go into my office and I see my marketing manager and I said, wow, you look even more depressed than I am. What's going on with you? And she goes, don't worry about it, but I appreciate you asking. So at lunchtime, I walk up to her again. I'm like, let me take you to lunch. You really look like you're having a bad time with something. And I'm paying for everything on this credit card, and I don't plan on paying these people back anyway, so let's go have a good time, right? So anyway, she says no again. But the next week, we have this company-wide meeting, and the entire, everyone who works there is there, and she stands up and she says, we all talk about how we care about each other in this company, but I want to thank one person. That's Kareem Cook, because the day that I discovered I had cancer, and it was terminal, he's the only one that noticed. So Kareem, I just want to thank you. And that just broke me down. Like I just broke down to a ball. I just got up, went to my desk, packed my stuff, went to my boss and said, no need for a 2-week notice. He said, no, shook hands, I left. I slept 17 hours that night. I didn't realize how stressful the situation was for me and how it was breaking down. My body was breaking down. Went to sleep, woke up, and now it's Sunday, and I slept another 15, 16 hours. So I quit my job Friday. I wake up on Sunday, and I get a call from Debbie Allen, and who I'd never talked to before in my life, but of course I knew who she was. And she goes, my brother's been saying that you can dance and you can step and you can do all these things. I'm working on something in New York. Can you come up to New York? And I said, Debbie, I quit my job Friday. I was living in D.C. at the time. I forgot to say that. I said, yeah, I can come up tomorrow, right? So I get up in the morning. Of course, if I had not quit my job, I wouldn't be able to do this. I drive up to New York, and I meet with her at Sony Studios. She says, okay, let's see what you can do. So, I'm do my thing. I have my cane and I'm whatever. And she goes, wow, you got to show Michael when he comes in. And I said, Michael? She said, yeah, this is for a Michael Jackson concert. I'm the head choreographer for the Michael Jackson concert. I said, okay. So 2 o'clock comes, Michael Jackson comes in the room, smooth criminal hat. He had the mask, which back then was weird. And he has his entourage and maybe about 10 people, and they sit in a room. And Debbie goes, all right, baby, you got to know Debbie Allen. All right, baby, he's just a man, baby. He's just a man. And what she didn't know was I had actually seen this moment, 17 years ago. Like I had seen this moment. I was already ready for it. I knew I was going to meet Michael. So when the moment came, I was calm, and I also said to her, I've done this in front of a bunch of people. I said, but I'm okay. So we started, I do my thing, and then Mike's like, oh, wow, you're like Fred Astaire, you're like Gene Kelly. He's just crazy. But he's like, you think you could choreograph a routine to my song Bad using that stuff you were doing? I was like, yeah, definitely. So he says, so Debbie's like, all right, baby, you're a choreographer. So long story short, I ended up being this choreographer for Michael Jackson for 2 months, and we become friends. We have some really interesting conversations. The concert actually never happened, but I ended up staying close with Debbie Allen. And let me just try and wrap this up. So I ended up staying close with Debbie Allen. I moved back down to D.C., and this is now 2 years later. She calls me and she goes, that stuff we were working with Michael Jackson? I'm doing a play at the Kennedy Center. Can you help me choreograph a scene? So I go over there, choreograph a scene. It's her, it's James Ingram, it's Vanessa Bell Calloway, and I end up understudying the lead role, this guy, and I end up doing the play a few times. He gets sick. It really solidifies our relationship. I end up going back I go to business school, and the summer in between first and second year, I come out to LA for the Black MBA conference. And, it's one of those things where it's a big parties every night, it's all these smart black people. And, a guy like me, I'm like, I'm going to meet my wife during this weekend, right? But I give Debbie a call, and she goes, hey, you're in town, come by. So Claude Tellis, who's my business partner now, we go over to her house, and she goes, you know, I feel like my life's been leading up to opening up a dance academy like I did in the show Fame, but I don't know how to write a business plan. We look at each other and we go, we could write you a business plan. So we skip all the parties. You know, we skip the opportunity to meet wives and stuff. So, but we go in a hotel for 3 days and we give her this, you know, a fully baked business plan with financials and everything. She takes this business plan. She raises money from Eddie Murphy, Denzel Washington, you know, Berry Gordy, Steven Spielberg, all these different people. She opens up the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, which is the premier dance academy in LA right now. Wow. A couple of years later, we end up coming out here. You know, we're driving out here. We graduated from business school. We're in Houston. We're driving out here, and this is a long story about Providence, but I promise you it's coming to an end. We get out here, driving from Houston here. She's yelling at us on the phone about where's my another version of the business plan, which she never paid us for, the first version. But we're stopping in New Mexico and, you know, Nevada, and we're in Kinko's and all these different states on our way here. And now we're angry, but we get to LA, just real upset about it. We first stop is at Kinko. We print out these binded business plans, and we just bring them to the dance academy and look around. Okay, this is the dance academy. Drop it on her desk, and we're like, all right, see you later. And she's like, no. I never really properly thanked you for this. I know you boys are entrepreneurs. I know you guys have all these ideas or something. Look, here's the dance academy. It's a beautiful place. You can have the whole back area for your business, whatever it is. And that was such an amazing blessing because we had 2 computers, we had 2 phone lines, we had fax machines, we had internet, we had binding machines to make proposals. So we were always doing proposals. You know, what other dance academy has a binding machine to make proposals? I had no place to live. I ended up living in the dance academy, sleeping on that futon for a year. Wow. And so when I think about the seeds that were planted and the providence walking in that path and how it ended up, because the story obviously goes from there, but that was when I realized, you know, I was just so thankful that these little steps I took, this step I took on faith. I quit my job on a Friday without a job to go to. Now it was only $15 I was giving up a week, but it was still a job that I quit. And with the blind faith, and then on Monday to be incredibly blessed, that would begin to sprout. The seed would be planted, and it would sprout for years. Even now, I'm still benefiting from that one move, which was given to me as a vision when I was a kid. And so that's part of the journey. I'm sure you'll get into more, but
that's incredible. I'm still stuck on Michael. You got a chance to meet Michael Jackson. I mean, yeah. People would break their necks for that opportunity, and you were hanging out with him. That's great. Mm-hmm. But so you had this kind of journey of what we call providence, where you were exposed not only educationally as a kid and go to a wonderful school like Duke University, mm-hmm. You also had an opportunity to meet some incredible people. But for me, it was what strikes me is this openness to new opportunities. You weren't afraid to take a step forward. And then you have this heart for caring. You cared for your boss. You showed compassion and concern for someone, even when you were struggling. That is the epitome of the Christian walk. But at the same time, Debbie Allen, who did not pay you, and you still were committed to doing what you made a promise to do. And it just kind of kept this providence open because God had his hands all over you. Yes. So your heart for caring and your heart for being prepared and to be ready for what's next led you to do something with the LA Unified School District. Yeah. Talk to me about what happened with the LA Unified School District and how you made some friends and enemies.
Oh, yeah. So Debbie Allen gifted us with this lovely place to start a business, and we didn't know what we were going to do, what the business was. And my business partner, Claude, and I looked at each other, and we said, you know, we're from the East Coast, and we're looking around, and, in the East Coast, you think LA is like Baywatch. Everybody's in this amazing shape. But all the brown people, black and brown people I saw, and people who weren't on the beach, just looked like the rest of the country, dealing with the same issues. And I read immediately, or we read, that there was a child obesity crisis. And it was a 40% child obesity crisis. And we just looked at each other and we said, what if we put healthy vending machines in the schools? And we just literally, within the first 2 weeks of being here, we just wrote a little business plan for ourselves, finally. Got a small business loan. And the first thing we did was cold call the president of the YMCA. We walked up in his office and we're like, man, you got soda machines in your lobby. You're trying to kill these kids. What's up with that? And walked out there with the contract for 26 YMCAs, right? So
And
you were just talking smack.
Your contracts to do what?
To put healthy vending machines in all the YMCAs.
Wow.
But we had not one vending machine to speak of. We were just, we thought it was going to take time. We thought we were just going up there to talk smack. We didn't know he was going to walk out there with a contract. And so we had to quickly figure it out. We bought this 14-foot renovated U-Haul truck and painted it white, and bought some used vending machines, and we ended up servicing those YMCAs. But then we looked at each other and we said, man, this really worked, unbelievably so. What if we got these schools? Because that's where you get 5,000 kids. You really making an impact. You get these schools. And so the first school we went to was Venice High School, just because it happened to be down the street. And they had this activist teacher there who was angry that they were bringing Domino's pizza to the school. And so we met her, and she was so happy to meet us. She marched us right into the principal's office, and we just pitched her, ran the same play. And we ended up getting Venice High School. And this is all within a couple of months. I was living in the office. I mean, we were really just, anyway. So we ended up getting that school, and we got a few schools. And then Coke ended up calling us. And they were like, trying to figure out who these people were that were taking their schools. And so
you got to stop. What do you mean you were taking their schools?
They were all under Coke contracts, right? So the YMCA just abruptly cut their Coke contract and gave us 26 YMCAs. Venice High School cut their contract and gave us their high school. And Coke they didn't like that, because here's the thing you have to realize about these soft drink companies. And I don't really demonize the companies, because they do a lot of good too. It was really the individuals I was dealing with that were the issue. Coke is not inherently a bad company. But she didn't see the vision. She didn't see where the world was going. The woman, this VP that ended up calling us into her office and then threatening us, told us she was going to take all of our contracts. And so we ended up calling Pepsi. And we said, look, you guys don't have a presence in LA. We're getting these schools. We're being intimidated. Why don't you send us free vending machines and we'll put your healthy products in the schools? So they said, let's do it. So they sent us free vending machines. So every school we had, they gave us 10 machines. And then we also called, I'm from the East Coast, so I was familiar with a company called Very Fine Apple Juice, and there was a carbonated juice company, and Silk Soy Milk created a vending machine program for us. And so we started getting all these companies that sold healthier products that had never had an opportunity to get into LA. And we were a doorway to that. And so everyone sent us vending machines. And so we were able to finance our business through them. And then Coke even saw it, and they were like, we'll do the same thing. And so we squared up, we made peace with Coke, they understood our vision. But we would have like a Dasani machine next to an Aquafina machine, a Dole machine next to a Minute Maid. It was just a really smart way to finance the operations of our business. We wouldn't have been able to do anything else. And so we did that. And then one day we woke up and we said, man, we're in bed with all these major companies, and they could wake up one morning and decide to remove all their machines and destroy us, just like somebody told us they would. And that made us nervous. We realized we were playing a game that we didn't write the rules. We didn't understand the rules. And so we said, well, we can't play that game. But if we change the rules of the game, then we could win that game. So we went up and saw Phil Angelides, who at the time was the state treasurer. And what people don't realize about state treasurers is that they're arguably the most important person in any state. Because he was lording over CalPERS and CalSTRS, the teachers' pensions.
Yeah, the pension.
Right? $280 billion at the time. All of the banks, Wall Street, pension funds, all these funds from the banks to the funds, they all go to these pension funds in these states to get the money. That's how Wall Street banks get their money, from pension funds. he had a mandate that you have to have a double bottom line. You have to be doing something good to get our money. And so we knew that he would care. So we went and saw him and we said, hey, man, this is what's happening in L.A. Everybody's nice with us right now, but we're nervous. We need to pull out a trump card and change the rules. And he said, what do you mean that? We need the law changed. There was already a group in L.A. that was working on that, but he introduced us to some assemblymen who we then brought with this coalition of teachers. And we ended up getting the law changed, banning junk food in L.A. So it became illegal to put sodas and junk food in the public schools. And that was 12 months after we got here. So you talk about hustling and running hard for 12 months. We did all that in 12 months. In the 12 months, we had 7 schools, 26 YMCAs, and the law changed.
Wow, that is amazing. Those of you who are viewing us online, this is an incredible story. It almost sounds like it's a fairy tale, but it is actually true. You can actually Google Claude Tellis and Kareem Cook, and you can see them testifying in front of the school board and other things about how this all happened. But what I would like for you all to do, those of you who are watching us from at home, send us questions or comments, and we will read some of those and respond to some of those as we continue to move forward. Again, I'm going to go back to this whole issue of caring. I mean, this is not about money. You've sacrificed. You're sleeping in an office. You don't have great facilities. I don't even know where you took a shower and all that kind of stuff. You clean today, brother. I don't know if you were clean back there, but you definitely clean today.
Appreciate it.
And so this theme, I'm a preacher, so I have this theme, you were helping while hurting. And that kind of pushed you to do some things. Where did this deep sense of care and concern come from? What incubated your desire to move to a city that you knew nothing about, and the first thing you did, not seek fame, not try to connect with Michael, not try to connect with magic, but really try to make a difference for what we call in Matthew 25, the least of these. Where did that come from?
Really just came from what's important in my life, what had become important. My mom was a, humble means, right? So she had my sister and I while she was in college and still graduated on time. She had public assistance for a few months before she decided to she was on her feet with a job. And we lived in some shady areas, and we had to deal with some major issues. When I was 4, my neighbor was murdered, and she was afraid that, the police were like, do you think that they know that, the person who did it knows that were you a witness or something? That terrified her. Within 5 days, we had moved to another area of the Bronx. And I'll say this. One of the memories I have about my mom, because it was a little traumatic, but was that we moved to this area of the Bronx, and I started going to this new kindergarten. And my neighborhood was Black and Hispanic, but there was a poor white neighborhood that was adjacent. So it was literally the borderline between the South and East Bronx. Mm-hmm. And the kindergarten was on the other side. My mom would have to walk us to school, my kindergarten, and then she would walk another 15 minutes to the train, and then she would travel an hour to work. There was a shortcut we could take through the neighborhood. I would cut that by about 10 minutes. And so we would do it. And going through that neighborhood, grown men would get in her face and call her the N-word in front of us and threaten her and tell her not to come back down this block every day. And every day, she would just walk down that, take that shortcut anyway, right? And they would just yell at us and do little things. And really, that was really the first time I heard myself being called the N-word by white folk, right? But what that inspired her to do was get involved in the NAACP in my neighborhood. And eventually, she was vice president, she was president, and she became very, very active. And her whole life has been about giving back. Her whole life has been about, community. And then when she moved to New Rochelle, she was still president in NAACP. So I had her as a role model. 2, everyone in my family over a certain age had diabetes. And to me, I questioned why. Is it inevitable that this happens? And the answer was no. These are lifestyle and food decisions that they were making when I was old enough to understand that. And really, it's just a lack of education and understanding that you could enjoy the things you enjoy that lead you to that place, but in moderation. And so, and that was it. That was the motivation. And so when we got to LA and we saw these obese kids, and my business partner, Claude, he had the same thing in his family, and we had talked about it in college. Again, Providence. We acted on it. We said, well, let's put healthy vending machines in the school. We don't have anything to lose. We have an opportunity. And I didn't even finish that story. Let me just end that story by saying that the following year, we ended up bidding on the contract for all the schools, and we ended up winning the contract for every single public high school, middle school in LA.
Wow.
And that was year 2. But we wanted to make a difference. And even with the company I have now, and I know that we haven't talked about it, but it's the same thing. You know, maybe we didn't invent this, but this is what we'd always say. You know, it's doing great by doing good. And
you got to say that again.
Just doing great by doing good.
What does that mean? That is a wonderful concept.
So we figured there had to be a way that we could do some good and be great, you know, by the standards that we set for ourselves. You know, and that was a way to do it. That was a way to do some good for some people and to make money doing it, you know, to run a business doing something good. You know, you don't have to do shady things in order to make a lot of money. You could just be serious and focused and dedicated to doing something good and become competent in it, be better than other people, and you'll make money.
Yeah. So Nature Aid is almost a 100-year-old company, and you and Claude purchased this company. So talk to me about how you obtained the company, and then where was it at the time, and then where are you now?
Right. So it's all one continuous story, right? So we actually had a third partner in the vending machine company, and that ended up being Debbie Allen's husband, Norm Nixon, right? Because he was sharing the office with us. We didn't know him, but he saw what we were doing. He was like, I want to be a part of that. And so he was a partner in the vending machine company. But we decided to split ways because we had gotten to a point where we wanted to do something. We were like, okay, we proved we can do something locally, but is there an opportunity to make a national or even global impact? And so what we wanted to do was buy a company. And right now there's a whole discipline called equity through acquisition. But back then it really had no term. But that's basically, you can be an entrepreneur and come up with an idea and and create a company, and then you're looking for venture capital money. Or you can do what's now called equity through acquisition, and you can buy a company that is going in the direction that you want to go, raise money, buy that company, and then just steer it in the direction you want to go. So you kind of bypass the earlier stage, and that's what we decided to do. And so we ended up raising money from some Duke University, from some individuals at Duke University, some board members in Grant Hill, and we ended up buying Nature Aid in 2012. And Nature Aid had been around since 1926 in a variety of different iterations. So it originally looked like Whole Foods. They had stores that had their own products in it, but then, you know, they got rid of their retail locations and just sold their products in other people's locations. And it had ups and downs, and we ended up catching it when it was sort of down. And what motivated us to think we could do it was, once our story got out for the vending machine company and what we had accomplished in LA in such a short period, we were invited by President Clinton and Governor Huckabee to come to Arkansas and talk about what we did in LA, because they were interested in getting rid of sodas in all the schools. Both of them had suffered heart attacks, and they decided to come across the aisle and create this nonprofit called the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. It's all about combating child obesity.
So I want to stop you there for a moment. I hope you don't forget. That's a very powerful point. When you become great by doing good, you start bringing opposite sides of the aisles together. You got Huckabee, who's a staunch Republican, Bill Clinton, who's a Democrat, coming together for something greater than their own selves. And again, I keep hearing this theme. There's nothing more spiritual than doing that. But if you can talk a little bit about numbers as relates to, you keep saying childhood obesity, and you gave me some numbers about the percentage of people who have prediabetes and what they can do to rid themselves of it by losing just a little bit of weight and so forth. So just kind of share some of those numbers, if you can remember those off the top.
So we ended up raising money from these individuals, right? And we ended up buying Nature-Aid in 2012. And our whole vision and mission was to try to reverse prediabetes, right? And prediabetes what prediabetes means is that if you do not, once you have prediabetes, it's totally reversible, by the way. You will develop diabetes if you don't do something about it, if you don't change your behavior. And so there are 100 million people in this country that are pre-diabetic.
100 million.
And for 60% of those people, if you lose 10% of your body weight, you'll go from pre-diabetic to healthy. And so when we realized that was the answer and not some magic blood glucose pill and all these different things that we thought, we bought a company like, all right, let's create a pill. We realized it was just change your diet, provide product. There were already products. Here's the thing. There are already products that do this, right? But they're not sold in the stores in the places that we live, right? And so one of the things it's not really a joke, we actually did this. You know, it was whole food quality products for a Walmart consumer. You know, why should my folks in the Bronx have to get on the bus and a train to get to a Whole Foods in Manhattan when they should just be able to go right downstairs and have access to the same quality products?
Yeah.
And so that was our whole thesis. Sell premium products at affordable prices to those who need it the most. And so, you know, we looked at what was happening and we realized that, and then that's one piece of information. Second one was we thought there was a magic pill, and there wasn't. We discovered we had two friends that had reversed their diabetes and gone from diabetic to healthy by going vegan. And just plant-based, and they were able to reverse their diabetes. And as I started to, you know, submerge myself in this healthy sort of community and this natural products world, there's a whole world out there. I started to realize there are a lot of people that have done that, but that message doesn't get disseminated to the places we are. Now, we also are realists, and I know that 5% of the world is vegan, so that's not attainable for most people. However, that's not our message. Our message is we want you to go from where you are, just become a little bit more healthy. If this is vegan and this is, you know, carnivore, you know, most people are somewhere here, right? We're not trying to get you to go to the end post, right? Because only 5%, 4% of the population can do that. And you try to force someone down here to be here, they'll just give up. You know, it's like we were talking about in the back room there. It's like you have to set goals that are actually attainable.
Yeah.
Because you could actually create more harm once you try to have people set a goal that was never attainable. And then they're dealing with their current crisis. And on top of that, they have the guilt of not accomplishing this goal. And so we don't even want you to get here. We want you to get here to here. And then here and play wherever you want. If you're going to do the bacon cheeseburger at night, then do a plant-based shake in the morning. You know, it's the balance that could save your life, right? And so that's really the message, and that's a palatable message for my folks in Florida and Claude's folks in Louisiana and people in general. It's like, okay, there's no judgment. Well, the goal we're setting is attainable, right? And so that's a key component of what we're talking about. Look, you can get here. You don't have to do the bacon, egg, and cheese in the morning if you're going to do the bacon cheeseburger at night. You know, do one or the other. Yeah. Every once in a while, do a cleanse, 21-day cleanse. Yeah. You know?
So the key is really kind of taking your time, taking small steps, right? Not giant leaps.
Not giant leaps.
And most of us, let me not say most of us, too many of us have accepted the fact that we're going to get diabetes or we're going to get sick and we're going to have the sugar, is what they used to say back in the day, right? The sugar.
Still call it that.
Sugar diabetes, right? But that's a really kind of bleak outlook on life. Because what I've seen and what you have seen and what many of us have seen is that diabetes is brutal. I mean, it attacks your major organs. It's more than just having dialysis. It's more than sticking your stomach with insulin. Yeah. It is literally destroying you from the inside out.
Yeah.
And what you're saying and what I'm saying and what we're saying is that we can do better.
Yes.
And we don't have to make dramatic changes. We can make small incremental changes over a long period of time,
Yeah.
which will make a significant difference. We can have a healthy life. We can retire and have years after retirement to enjoy children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We can travel. We can serve our church and serve our community. We can make a difference with a healthy body.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there are 30 million people that are diabetic, but there are 100 million people that are pre-diabetic. Those 100 million people can go in the other direction. You don't have to go into that the 30 million zone. That's really the message, right? And most people just don't know it because, when you're pre-diabetic, you can be slim. It's really the visceral fat that's the indicator, right? Mm-hmm. There are people that, really skinny, but they still have pre-diabetes and they don't realize it. And so, and that's really the message. There's an educational component to it that is also a part of what we do. We go around and we talk to people and we educate, And I'll tell you, here's something that's very, very indicative of the crisis, right? So the health industry is growing. It's like $20 billion industry. It's growing at like 5%. But the number of people who are pre-diabetic are also growing, right? So the math doesn't work out. You have more companies trying to make people healthy, but more people are becoming more healthy, then what's the issue? The issue is those companies are talking to the same person. They're talking to that person that goes into Whole Foods, that goes into Joe's health food store. They're selling products to that person that's already educated, right? And so there's a conference called the Natural Products Expo West. Right? Every year, 90,000 people come to this event. It's the biggest natural convention in the world. It takes place in Anaheim every March or April. You can go there, and we're there. We'll have a booth, and we're 10 by 10 or 10 by 20. We have a big presence there. But there are about 20, 30 companies that sell similar products. They're all there, right? They're all selling similar products, maybe something different about each one, but they're all selling the same product to that same group of people. When we go to the Essence Festival, there are 550,000 people there. We're the only company there that's doing what we're doing. We're the only company out of those 30 or 40 that are there that go and talk to the 550 people who are the real addressable market, the people that really need the products and really need to learn this. That's why the problem is just growing, because everyone's selling to the same person.
Yeah. Give me your saying. You said, be great by doing good. So there's I hear several strands in this story. One is a compassion and a care for your people and want to do better. Two, not just locally, but how do you scale it nationally or even internationally, something larger than just your community stretching out there. Three, I hear this incredible opportunity of providence, of having your eyes and ears open to experience new things that you never would experience before. We've never done that before. It's not acceptable when you are traveling in providence. You want to be open. But the other thing is really, you're prepared. I mean, you have studied. You have gone to some of the best schools. You're not walking out there unprepared. You're able to write a business plan. You know what you're going to do. You know your core values, and you know where you're going. And that's very, very powerful. I want to talk about now Nature Aid. Your company did something with Costco that no Black-owned company has ever done before. What was that?
So we're the first Black-owned company in our space. There have been other Black-owned companies in Costco, and they do have a few.
Okay.
But we're the first Black-owned company in our space to be there. And there's a reason, when you say that, there's a reason why that is the case, why very few Black-owned companies, sometimes none, are in Costco. And it's because one product in Costco in all 8 regions and internationally will do $40 million in sales. So Costco has a mandate that they don't want to be more than 20% of a company's revenue. If the average product now in my particular industry is doing $50 million per SKU, How many black-owned companies do you know that are doing
that.
250 million in sales, such that 50% of 50 million is 20% of their business?
Yeah.
They can qualify to be in Costco. Zero. And so when we met Costco, we had to have that For a while, we couldn't even get in. But then we finally had to have this come to Jesus moment where we had to let them know that there's a reason. And there's a reason why you don't have any black-owned companies. And I don't want to tell you candidly what I said, but it was pretty candid. You know, some people turned really red in that room from embarrassment. But it was a blind spot because, you know, you take a store like Target, and we're in Target, we're in Whole Foods, we're in Costco, we're in Amazon, we're in a lot of different places. But Target is intentional about bringing diversity in. But at the same time, the average product is going to do $1 million, maybe $2 million. And you can find a lot of black-owned companies that are doing $8 million in sales, you know, that can qualify to be there, but you can't find. And so when we alerted them to the issue, because it was unintentional, it was like we never really thought about that. We never really thought about this practice. And let me just explain this. The reason they don't want to be more than 20% of your revenue is because if for some reason it doesn't work out and you have to discontinue you, you know, that's a major hit to your company. You can go bankrupt, right? If you bought $50 million worth of inventory, but then you get kicked out, you're going to go bankrupt if you're not $200 million in sales. And so these companies don't want to bring you in because they feel the responsibility. They don't want the responsibility of it didn't work. You know, the business doesn't make sense on both sides, but we have to discontinue you. But by discontinuing you, you're going to go bankrupt. They don't want to put themselves in that situation. No company does. So that's really the issue. And so when we alerted them to this, it was like a light bulb. And then what they said was, you know what? We're going to let you in, and we're going to support you. And they put us on the cover of the Costco magazine in January, which was amazing, with the 14 million households. And then here they did this thing that they haven't done with any other company, right? They never talk about it. And Costco's an interesting case study. They said, you know what? And we want to donate half of the profits and sales of your product to inner city education. And they said, do you know any? And they said, yeah. I said, there was a program called Prep for Prep that I give all the credit to for taking me off the path I was on and putting me on the path I am. That's a great program. And so potentially, they're going to be writing Prep for Prep 7-figure checks, right? You know, and I met with the CEO and I said, you know what? I know I haven't donated, but guess what? I'm going to make up for all them years I didn't donate to Prep for Prep with one fell swoop. You know, and so that's major that they would do that for us. And then the CEO said to me, what else are we missing? You know, what else are we missing? What else aren't we doing? And I said, well, have you put any money in black banks? You know, Costco's a $220 billion company. I know you got $500 billion in a bank somewhere just collecting interest. You ever thought about putting any of that in black banks? I said, do you know any black banks? I said, actually, I do. And to their credit, 3 weeks later, they wrote a $25 million check, put it in black banks. I was just up there 2 weeks ago, and I was there for a fundraiser they have every year. And at that fundraiser, I learned that in the last 20 years, they've given $75 million to a scholarship fund that goes to brown and black kids. And so last 2 weeks ago, they gave $310,000 scholarships to 300 black and brown kids to go to a school that it costs $14,000 to go to a year. So they paid 10 of the $14,000 for that tuition, University of Washington. And Costco's been doing this. And so when I juxtapose that against Target wants everyone to know that they're diverse, and they are. To their credit, they let everyone know we're supporting black-owned businesses. When they saw us we were interviewed by Fox talking about we can't get an opportunity. And Target was the first one to call us and got us in. They got a lot of people in. Costco has done arguably more. They tell no one. No one in their company even knows what I just told you because they're just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. And so there's a lot that they're doing, and it's a great story for us being there, you know. And this is the product, by the way. I thank you for having it here, but this is the product that's in Costco. You know, it's a Nature weight loss shake, and it's here in California.
So the short version is I was pre-diabetic about 5 years ago, and I had to lose some weight. I lost 30 pounds in 3 months and went from pre-diabetic to healthy. And you know, I've told you this story before. And when I went to Costco a couple years ago and I saw your product, I incorporated this in my daily regimen. This is good stuff. It tastes good. I throw, every morning I use this as a meal replacement. I put some spinach or some kale, throw a couple berries in there, and it's on like Donkey Kong. I tell you, it's great.
Thank
so
you.
I encourage, I know, shameless plug, but we have a couple questions from our audience, and this one, if you can see that, what advice does Kareem have for staying focused in a adversarial environment? And you have had some pretty tough environments to navigate. So what would you tell someone? How do you stay focused when you are really in a tough adversarial kind of environment?
Well, I'll tell you this. Claude and I pray before every meeting. Every meeting. We sit in the car, pray. We walk in there. And we walk in what I would call a supernatural confidence. Doesn't mean we win every battle, but we're going to give our best every time we go in there. And really, it's that confidence. You have to believe, and I think I was telling you that story about Claude. I'll tell it briefly because we have a lot of these stories. And the best thing we're going to do is write this book. That's going to be the most successful thing I ever do about the journey. But when we were raising, which is called a search fund, we were raising $1 million. And you just raising this money to go look for a company to go buy. We were introduced to a CEO of a major Wall Street bank. And we went up there, and this guy's famous. He's on the cover of the Wall Street Journal all the time. He's a big, big guy. And he says to us, you know, he had seen what we did with the vending machine company. He said, I don't invest in companies, I invest in people. And you are the type of people I invest in. I will write your first $250,000 check if you prove that you can go raise the other $750,000. You know, you get that prompt. And so it took us about 6-7 months, but we go back to his office. And we say to him, all right, we have another $750 in commitments. We're ready for that first check. And he says, do you have like a, kind of fundraising document I could look at or something? And he had that for 7 months, but we're like, we're prepared. We pull out this investment memo, hand it to him. He's thumbing through it. And he gets to this one part where it says that Claude and I are going to make $100,000, each. And he goes, $100,000? I'm going to pay you guys $100,000? He goes, he's cursing, are you kidding me? I'm going to pay you guys $100,000? Are you in my office talking, and he's just going ballistic. And I have to admit, I'm not scared of any individual, but I was a little shook at the moment. And what I was about to say was, all right, we'll take $65,000. But I didn't say it. I said, let me just see how Claude plays this. And Claude was sitting next to me, and he looks at him, he goes, you went to Duke, Kareem went to Duke, I went to Duke. Kareem got his MBA from Duke. I got my MBA from Wharton. Right now, I can go on the street, and he meant Wall Street, and I can make $300,000 a year, right now. For $100,000, you get me at a discount. I ain't taking no less. And he just looked at him. And they just looked at each other, and I was looking at both of them looking at each other. And then finally, the guy said, all right, what's next? All right, cool. And then he just went on, and it was just over. And that lesson, and then Claude and I have this tradition where, when we go in a battle and we win, we don't celebrate. We go to the elevator, we quiet, we ring the bell, we walk in the elevator, we just look straight. And we get outside, thank you, Lord Jesus. And for that moment, we walked out, I'll never forget. We got out the elevator and walked outside. I was like, that's how you drive, Claude. That's how you drive, right?
That is amazing.
And it was just, and here was the lesson in that, right? For him, it was a test because $250,000, guy's a billionaire. That's nothing to him, right? What he could see was we're going to be back in his office asking for 7-figure checks. And then we're going to be running a company. And stewarding, lording over his money, and we're going to be in some room, and there's going to be some guy yelling, getting loud, that's trying to intimidate us, that person going to be able to talk us out of his money.
Yeah.
And it was baptism by fire, you know, and it taught me something. It was like Claude was ready for that moment. I wavered a little, but it's about being confident and knowing your worth and knowing that whatever you're in that room to do, you deserve to be there, and what you're asking for, you deserve. It should be yours. And not giving it to me says something about you, not about me, and how prepared I am for it.
Yeah, we in the Baptist church, we say, what God has for me is for me. So as we prepare to kind of transition for our closing, I'm going to ask you about faith. I mean, you talked a little bit about praying. You talked about understanding your godly journey and destiny through providence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about your faith. But first, I want to answer a few questions that we may have from our audience. Any plans to expand globally, especially to African countries?
So that is in the plan. We already sell internationally. It's been tough to get in Africa. Actually, we have a product that helps with heal the gut. And I was invited, as I told you, to Swaziland by the king of Swaziland to, they wanted to know about our product. And, the average person makes $2 a day in Swaziland, so they can't afford it.
Wow. And
he wasn't willing to subsidize it, so it actually never went anywhere. But we're always looking to do international expansion. We're trying to, and right now we do. So we're sold in Korea and China and Russia and a lot of Asian places in Europe and Mexico, but we sell a little bit. But we haven't really found success in Africa. And every time that I try to broker a deal, it's just harder. They make it, and I'm starting to see a theme. Interesting. When I went to Swaziland, they don't have any embassy. They don't have an American embassy. They don't have any your Western embassies. It's because the king. It's the only country where the king is actually the head of state as well. You go to Nigeria, there's thousands of kings, but everybody's a king. But this king is actually the equivalent of a president. And, America doesn't support a dictatorship, and so we don't have an embassy. But the one embassy that was there, and the one person that I ended up meeting was the Chinese embassy. Right? And so they don't care about that. And they're there building infrastructure and buying land for a nickel and all types of stuff. So, it's just harder to do business with a lot of African countries because there are other countries that are dealing with them.
Yeah. That's amazing. So just so you know, I'm 100% supportive of you and Claude, and if you all ever want to expand to Hawaii and need someone to go and scout the land for you, I'm your guy.
This product is in Costco in Hawaii, and I would love to have you go and take a look at those stores and
make sure that they're stacked properly. And I have to bring Tanisha with me. She's my consultant.
Yep. I think, absolutely. You need someone to make sure that when you walk in a hotel room that it's safe.
It's safe, COVID-free and all that other good stuff.
Talk about it.
So you're an inspiration. Claude wasn't able to be with us tonight. You guys are amazing. And there's a question from the audience. My kids have big dreams. How do I encourage them to stay the course?
So I will tell you that as a kid, I didn't have any role models. Like I said, I think I told you, I didn't know anybody that grew up with their father in the house growing up. And so I didn't really have any role models. And for a while, I was lucky. But when I got to a point where I had someone I could look up to, and I'll tell you this story. This is kind of interesting. So I went from being in this Black and Puerto Rican lower income neighborhood, getting this scholarship, going to a school that was predominantly Jewish and everybody had money. And I didn't know how to operate. I didn't know, in my neighborhood, I was cool. I could play ball. I was funny. And you couldn't, the mama jokes, there was always somebody easier to go after. I had my couple of fights, I was a hard out, so it was easier people to pick on. I was cool. I knew how to be cool there. But in this private school, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to be, how to exist. And so what I did was, there was a kid who was a year older than me, whose parents were really nice to me, and he was a cool guy. He was a really cool guy. And he was the coolest kid in the grade above me. And he became my friend, and I just watched what he did. And every year I would just do what he did a year before. And what he didn't know was, in the beginning of the year, I always would have a conversation like, hey, man, what classes did you take, man? What do you, he was president in the 9th grade and president of middle school and president of student government and took all these different courses. And every year, I just did the exact same thing. I became that because that was who I had to look to and see that's how you lead and win. Yeah. And he ended up going to Duke. And that's actually what introduced Duke to me. I mean, there's a story behind that, but I ended up going to Duke. Didn't even know anything about Duke. I thought I was going to, schools you never heard of, just because I didn't think that I could qualify to go to such a great school, and I did. And all schools I applied to, all great schools. I didn't know my potential until, and Prep came in and was like, showed me I could be great. And if I could, I'll tell you, that's a funny story too. I went to a college fair, and there was a college I'm not going to mention because I don't want anyone who might have gone there to hate me, but it's a school that's it's a decent school. But at this college fair, there was Harvard, Yale, all these different schools. And I'm sitting at this table because the guy's like, you're exactly what we were looking for. We think you'd be great here. We might even find some money. And my mother and I sat there at that table for like 40 minutes talking to that guy. It's like, you're exactly what we're looking for. And so when I go back to the private school, I tell the college counselor, oh, I'm going to this school. And he goes, that's a great school. Yeah, I think that'd be great. And so I applied there and like the state schools in New York and city colleges and all that. That's my college list. I go to Prep, and my college counselor, who's a sister, she says, all right, let's see your list. And I show her the list with that school at the top, and she takes that piece of paper and she sees it and she goes, throws it across the room. Wow. She's like, Kareem, you are not going to any of those places. You can go to Yale, Harvard, all these places. That's where you're going, one of those places. And then they took me on a college tour to all the Ivy League schools, to all the top liberal arts schools. And I got in every school I applied. UPenn, applied to Brown and Duke and all these places. I ended up going to Duke. But it's tough. But as to answer the question directly, you need to have your child see somebody that was where they are, and so you can see the potential of where you can be. Because a lot of us don't even say it, but we just decide where our ceiling is. And your ceiling most of the time is so much higher. It's just that you've never seen anybody get there, and so you don't think that that's real for you. Yeah. When the world is full of possibilities, depending on some of the choices you make early on.
There's a psychologist named Ann Rowe, R-O-E, and she talks about the importance of exposing children early to various things that we have never been exposed to. And then you want to add to that role modeling. Find someone who has been where you are, or where you are, and are going where you want, and are where you want to be. And so I think that is great. A couple more questions. Can diabetes be the direct result of excessive weight gain?
Yeah, I mean, excessive weight gain will lead you to having prediabetes and ultimately diabetes. It can. I mean, we're all different body types. There's no flat out answer for that, but there's a direct correlation for most of us. Yeah. And so, I would suggest you go see your doctor and see where you are on the spectrum of healthy to pre-diabetic to diabetic, and then adjust. If you're pre-diabetic, then you have to lose some weight to become healthy. If you're diabetic, there are actually ways to, the pharmacies don't want you to know that because they want you to buy their drugs for whatever, $1,000 a week. But there are ways. There are people who have gone from type 2 diet. Now, type 1, that's hereditary and there's nothing you can do about it. But type 2, you can totally reverse.
That's completely environmental and choices, right?
Yeah.
Do you provide any sublingual holistic products to help combat type 2 diabetes?
We don't have any products we don't sell medicine. We don't sell anything. Like I said, the people that I know, and it's all for me is anecdotal. It's because I know at this point a lot of people who have reversed their type 2 diabetes by their diet. And there is a woman who, this is her practice, and I've been trying to remember her. And I met her at a health show that I went to. That's her whole thing is, it's hard. And most people don't want to do it because you're going to have to give up. Sugar is 10 times more addictive than cocaine.
I know.
And people don't want to give it up. And they don't realize they're addicted, right? It's just sugar is just a little, you're addicted.
So you're telling me I should have tried cocaine before I tried sugar?
Yeah. I once joked with my mom. I was like, I don't like cocaine. She's like, you ever try cocaine? I was like, I don't like it. I just like the way it smells. But I've never tried it. Where I'm from, I saw the results early on.
The results of it early.
But definitely losing some weight. And if you go to a plant-based diet and you really stick to it, you can reverse that.
Yeah. Two last comments. One is you had an opportunity to go to the Dodger game, playoff game tonight.
I did.
And you chose to be with us. You could have easily canceled and we would have understood. As a matter of fact, if I would have had the invitation, we might have canceled this thing tonight.
I'd be here by myself.
You'd be right. But why? Why was this important for you to be here with us today?
Man, because I feel like this is my purpose, man. It's just one of those things where you're doing the right thing. I mean, I've been looking forward to this all day, and I just feel like this is what I am here to do. I can see the game on TV. It's great. The Dodgers and the Padres, that's amazing. I'm from New York, so I don't really care about any of those teams. But my friend who has the suites, he had some people he wanted me to meet, some business people. And Magic Johnson is now an investor. And by the way, when you go into Costco, you'll see him on the tray. So Magic Johnson is a co-owner of the Dodgers alongside one of my investors. So it was going to be a great time, but I'd rather be here. Yeah. I care about you, deeply concerned, about you and your health, and it's good to lay eyes on you. And so there's no place I'd rather be.
And we are incredibly honored. You didn't even scratch the surface on some of the great things you're doing and have done, and I'm just moved. Last question, and then I'll make a comment about this coming Sunday. Faith, you talked about you pray before every major meeting. I know I've seen you with your daughter. I know that you are a great, godly role model for her. I know you talk about the divine path that God has laid for us. Is there anything else you want to share with us about your faith as it relates to any aspect of your life and how it has impacted you?
Man, so like I said, when I think about providence, and I just think about early in life, I had something happen to me that was a major, major reminder. It was literally God speaking to me. So I grew up, I didn't go to church growing up. My grandmother went to church, and I would go, she lived in Queens, and so when I would go see her, every couple of months, she would take us to church, and I remember it being a chore, and she would give us a couple of dollars to put in the plate when they came by us, and gave us butterscotch, and, it was the typical church experience. And so I remember those experiences, and I believed in Christ. My mom had us pray, and she believed in Christ as well, but it wasn't a big aspect of my life. But I went to a wedding about 10 years ago, and one of the white kids from my private school, who was an atheist back then, said to me at the wedding, he said, Kareem, I have to tell you that something happened about 20 years ago that I've never been able to forget. And he reminded me of something that actually happened that I had forgotten about right after it happened. I forgot about it after that day, which is my high school team. We were a good high school team, but we played against great teams, and we always lost. And we never made it anywhere. But my senior year, we made it to the finals of the championship game, against a team that had personally beaten me 9 straight times since high school, since ninth grade, twice in 9th and 10th, and then they beat us in the playoffs in 11th grade, and they beat us twice in the regular season, and now they're about to beat us again. They whipped us, like they were great. I was captain of the basketball team at that time. And before we left the locker room, I called back my 2 co-captains. And I had never done this. And like I said, I forgot about it after I did it. I said, hey, man, I could see everybody was scared. It's like, yo, y'all mind if we pray? And we prayed. And I don't know what I said. I just remember it happened. And then we went out there, and I hit all 10 shots that I took, and we ended up beating this team in the championship.
Wow.
And I was just so happy about it. I just went and got pizza and lived the rest of my life. But for those 2 guys, they saw a prayer, and they saw overcoming the insurmountable odds. And they never forgot it. And he reminded me of that when we were at this wedding. And it was just God reminded me that, hey, man, I was there. I was there. You forgot that, right? But now I'm reminding you, I was there.
Yeah.
You think you'd have won that game without me? You know what I mean? And so I'm constantly hit with these reminders. And it's, again, providence. When you're on that path, then you hear that voice. You know in the moment, this is just no way this could have happened without God.
Yeah.
And so, so that's it, man. Just, have your ears open, your heart open, your eyes open to see your path, hear that voice, and recognize, the signs that are there for you. And, you live your best life. And again, best life doesn't mean that you're going to be a billionaire. It just means you're going to get what was meant for you. That's your best life.
And thank you. Great time with you. On Sunday, this coming Sunday, we will have a recap of what we've learned, what we've gleaned, and how we can apply it in our lives. So I invite you, Sunday following the 9 o'clock service, about 9:15, we'll be in Building B having a conversation with Veronica. Dr. Veronica will be with us facilitating that conversation. Until we meet again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Share the link with a friend. Peace.